Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Jay and Lucas. What's up, gentlemen?
Guten Nacht.
Guten Nacht. Lucas, of course, coming to us all the way from Germany.
Jawohl.
Yeah, my German is still terrible, but learn a little more here and there.
Mein Deutsch ist schlecht.
Ja. Sprechen Sie English?
So gut. Ja, ich spreche ein bisschen, aber habe viele vergessen. That's from my German friends. You guys just not.
Das ist krank, man.
I said I speak a little, but I have forgotten a lot.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, we're going to talk today. Lucas wrote a rather lengthy article, lengthy and interesting article on our site, which posted
You made that
Friday.
sound so negative.
That was not my intent.
Oh my God.
This is what
It may be the longest blog post on the entire website.
He's gonna have to go to the hospital. He's got third-degree burns. What's going on, Kyle? You all right?
Lucas even
I know I'm
all
used
of
to
his
Jay roasting
supplemental
me, Kyle.
supplemental materials separately from the actual blog article itself. No, that was not intended as a roast. Look, hey, when lengthy for me, that's like a compliment for a blog article.
That's what it sounded
because
like.
as somebody that edits all the blog articles, SEO or CO, if you will, length is good. Yep. Words are good. I like words. So anyway, that was about essentially the state of the meta. Lucas is an actual research scientist. Stop me if I'm like overselling this.
No, yeah, my official title is a postdoctoral researcher at my current place here. So yeah.
So that means you're also a doctor, right? Or at least you have a doctorate. I don't know what the distinction is.
Yeah. So
not
like if I'm at
doctor,
school and you're my student, you would call me doctor, but for everyone else, it's just Dr. Lucas to you guys.
Okay, Dr. Lucas.
The difference is he can tell us about stuff, but he can't help us if we're having a heart attack.
There you go.
Oh yeah, if you're in trouble. Well, actually, I have my EMR. I did do first responders for a little bit, so I'm not completely useless. But
all right,
if it's past CPR, then I'm not helpful.
Okay. For that, we would need Dr. Evan.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah, he's a real doctor, that kind of doctor.
Yeah.
I just look at numbers and talk about stuff, and yeah, he actually touches people and does things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't word that right.
Phrasing.
We should definitely leave it in though.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Lucas essentially wrote what is can only be described as a extremely thorough look at how various units and factions and everything are doing in Legion. We're going to talk about this article shortly after housekeeping and news and such. We're also going to talk about Nova Open because that is coming up this weekend. Jay and I are both going to that. And then Lucas, you're going to M. Norden. Is that right?
Yeah, Im Norden just means in the north in German. It's the biggest German Legion event to date. So I think it's like 96 people. So quite a large event.
Is that a qualifier also?
No, it is not. This was, I believe, planned so far out that for most of these qualifiers, it seems that they're picking up quite quickly. And this event's been in the works for, I think, almost half a year, maybe more. Finn's the one heading it, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding, it's been in the works a long time. So it was already a thing before world qualifiers were coming back.
But nonetheless, that's clearly a very large event.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about that, your predictions for that also. But first, let's do housekeeping.
Yeah, okay. Housekeeping. Great. Let's do that now. So number one, with a bullet, Patreon. A lot of you have signed up. Thank you so much. Great news. We have kicked up the After Dark podcast again. John and I have done a few episodes already, and we're going to keep that going weekly. So we're back to weekly on After Dark. And basically, the After Dark podcast is we talk about Legion and other stuff in unfiltered, right? So you're going to get expanded opinions on stuff. Like if we talk about something on the Scoundrels, John and I will go on and go more in depth about why we feel that way, and and really kind of talk about all kinds of stuff and give you guys like in-depth analysis to things. We talk about like what we're doing here at the Fifth Trooper. You guys hear a little bit here and there. We tippy toe around subjects, but on the After Dark we really get deeper into it because I don't want to waste all the time on Scoundrels talking about it. You can get that for there's $1 entry for the Patreon. So if you go sign up for a day today, $1 a month, that's $12 a year. That's it. You can sign up and get our After Dark podcast. We actually just hit one of our goals to start doing monthly Q&As again. And so that is going to be starting on the Patreon. And that's going to be great. So there'll be a live Q&A where you guys can come on and talk to us. We'll have a rotating cast for that. Usually it's John, myself, Kyle, and we'll try to rotate in some of the doctors on staff into that as well for your questions. And yeah, so Patreon, please. I really I know there's a lot of you that listen to this cast that aren't Patreon members yet, and that's a great way to support this cast and the blog. And we're about to talk about Lucas's research paper today, and so that is brought to you by Patreon. And so I really encourage you guys to sign up. There's a ton of cool stuff. We're giving away print and play cards. We're gonna eventually here we're going to do some of the other cards that you may not have that haven't been printed yet. And so there's a lot of cool giveaways you can get for being a Patreon member in addition to more content. So we're starting a new podcast soon called The Fifth Tile that's going to be talking about other games, and we're going to have a lot of cool Patreon exclusive content surrounding that as well. So go to patreon.com/the Fifth Trooper, sign up. All you got $1 a month, man or lady. That's all you got to do. $1 a month, and you can support all of the blog and the podcast and all of that stuff. We'd really appreciate it. So you know what? I'm going to pause right here. Go ahead. Go patreon.com/fifthtrooper.com/Fifth Trooper, not 2.coms. That's ridiculous. Go there. Go ahead. You're going to see the $1 tier. Yep. Click that one. Okay. Now go put in your information. All right. Great. You're now a Patreon member. Thank you. Someone commented on one of our things that I talk about Patreon too much. So I think we're going to have an episode that's only about Patreon. And
just
that's
an hour
yeah.
long episode.
Just one
Patreon.
whole hour
yeah.
about I'm just going to explain how Patreon works.
Yeah, people haven't learned. If you want Jay to stop talking about something, telling him to stop talking about something will have the exact opposite effect.
Yeah,
accurate.
Yeah. And okay, so that's all the housekeeping. You guys know all our other stuff, so I'll leave it at that.
All right. Is there any news for today? Or we're just gonna get right into it?
Yeah, no, I'll go real quick. So the team running PAX is Unplugged. PAX Unplugged is really excited. They're up to 120 seats, I think they can seat now, and so they want to make this one of the biggest events here on the East Coast. PAX Unplugged is in one of the first weekends in December, and so highly recommend signing up for PAX Unplugged. I'm going to be there. We've got a ton of sponsors. If you guys don't remember, we talked about that the sponsors that are doing PAX, including us, have put together enough money that we're going to give away 6 flights to Adepticon. And here's a little thing I will tell you, there will be a last chance qualifier at Adepticon. So if you go to PAX and you get one of the flights, that's your flight to go try for your World's ticket if you haven't gotten it yet. So that's great. That's December 2nd through the 4th. Great team that's running it. You got Nick Brobnar from Legion 99 with all his amazing tables. He's going to be setting that all up. Again, you got the world's invites. Fifth Trooper is going to be there, hanging out, playing, maybe streaming. I don't know yet. But there's going to be a lot of cool stuff. So let's try to make PAX Unplugged a huge event. And, I think this will be great.
Very exciting. And that's in Philadelphia, right?
Yes, sir. Yep. All
Awesome.
right. That's it.
All right. Well, let's dig right in. Lucas, do you want to tell us about this article that you wrote and basically what you did? Just take us in there. And as mandated by Jay before the show, if you could also try and be entertaining.
Yeah.
Before the show, Jay was like, Lucas and Kyle, I know you guys love numbers, but we got to make sure this is entertaining. Basically a warning not to just talk about statistical analysis by itself.
Yeah, he do. Kyle and I could just debate the numbers and the meaning and the
how you got
the
there,
rationale behind the stats.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, how I got there.
Off, decay.
Yeah.
No thanks.
So I guess very broad overview of everything. So the idea behind this was we have now Legion Stats, which is a tool that's sponsored by the 5th Trooper that Dr. Power Slam 2 put together. That is a repository for Legion games. So we have all this Legion data that we previously didn't. And so I kind of just had the idea, why don't I take advantage of this great resource and apply some statistics to it to get an idea of how's the current state of the game, look at some past patterns. And then I also had a little bit of a hit of motivation. As you may know, I've been busy moving for the last few months, and I've been hearing a lot of talk about these crazy Shadow Collective units, and I wasn't buying the hype. So I decided if I can't play games, I can look at the numbers and see what the numbers tell me to see if I really need to be building an army to counter all this Shadow Collective stuff, or if it's just, a bunch of hubbub. So it was kind of the motivation behind it. And I guess one thing is we're going to stay light on this. If you want all the nitty gritty and just details, you can find this article on the blog. Like Kyle said, it's pretty lengthy, in depth, and I break down in the article, depending on your interest level. I send you the key points to read things. And there's even, if you're really interested in like data, I have an entire supplemental document that walks completely through everything. So I tried to cater it to whatever your interest is. And I guess the one other general disclaimer is these are statistics based on sampling data. So there are some certain caveats and assumptions that goes into that, right? With the statistics, it's not necessarily proof of something. You can't prove anything, but your data can support certain conclusions. And so with this, these conclusions are my own conclusions based on the data. If you don't like what I say, you can go read the data yourself.
Yeah.
Make your own conclusions.
Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Lucas took stone cold facts here, and he put the numbers up, and you can look at the numbers yourself, and you can go, oh, here's a unit that has this data attached to it. I don't want to give it away because we're going to talk about it here in a second, and you can make your own conclusion. And we're going to make a conclusion here. And guess what? If you don't like it, I don't care. That's basically where I'm at. Like, if you don't like our conclusion and what we say about units and stuff, okay, go look at the information that we have in this data that Lucas has put together. You make your own conclusion. Just take the numbers. Sometimes 1 and 1 is 2. In our case, that's how we add. But maybe to you, 1 and 1 is 5. I don't know. So you decide.
Yeah. So I guess the one underlying assumption to this data is we take into account the effects of factions on win rates. So if you take win and loss counts, you could put it by a faction. We did stats on that. I then did activation count and compared that across win rates, and then compared units present in an army. And one thing with this is we group all that data together. So one of the underlying assumptions is there's a normal distribution, which just means like random and equal, of player skill within these groups. Because obviously player skill has some effect, but there's not necessarily a perfect way to get at that. So our hope is by having big enough numbers, you kind of average out on this. But it doesn't touch on player skill, so you can speculate all you want about that. Yeah.
Sure. Here's my speculation on that. Is that I find that some of this new stuff, and we used to say this about tons, right? And I think this can be said about units that go above and beyond, that are really good units, that they can take bad players, make them good, take good players, make them great, and take great players and make them unbeatable to a degree. And so I think that's where I see this, that we say, okay, we don't know the skill level of these players, but I could tell you from personal experience that you put a great unit in somebody's army and they could be an average player, that they're going to have good to great results because of that unit. And so I think a good to great unit nullifies, player ability sometimes. That's my conclusion.
Yeah. And I think in the future, we want to touch, or at least this is going to be a continuing series is the plan. I don't know exactly how regularly. The more regular it is, the less in depth I can go. The more time I have, we can do much bigger analyses. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. But in the future, we want to look at player skill, but figuring out a good way to represent player skill in a game is like a whole paper in of itself. So essentially, before we can say what's due to factions, what's due to player skill, we're gonna have to do an entire analysis to say how can we represent mathematically player skill. All right, there's all the numbers talk. Let's talk about the fun numbers. So the three main things, like I said, I tested was differences between factions, differences between activation counts, differences between units, and the quick and dirty, if you don't want to read too much, was with factions before the release of battle forces from January until I believe it's June was the time range I picked. There was no statistical difference in win rates between factions. There was variation, Republic, actually I have the numbers right here. Should probably look at that if I'm going on my own article. There was variable win rates, right? Separatists had the highest with about a 53% win rate, and I believe Republic was the lowest with about a 47%. What the stats said is just basically this variation, we didn't have enough evidence that this isn't due to random chances. So our personal experiences might say otherwise, right? Like we saw people are struggling with Republic, but the numbers on their own didn't say that. So now fast forward to after Shadow Collective, which is the last 2 months. And surprisingly, we actually, because of all the events, and I think post-COVID world, people being so hyped for games, we actually had 972 games recorded. Or win losses. So that's, 2 per game. So roughly, what is that, about 450, 500 games. So some pretty good data. And we saw then a statistical effect of factions. So at this point, the variation was significant enough that we could say this is not due to random chance past a certain threshold. In this case, the probability that was random is 0.008. So that's like less than 1% chance. And the big thing, if you look at this, is Republic. Jay's falling asleep. Data.
Do we need an air horn, Jay?
Bad. Shadow Collective good. Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah. So the big thing that changed all this was Shadow Collective is currently doing quite well, has a 63% win rate, and Republic dropped even farther with a 43% win rate. The other factions are pretty close to each other, but those two threw it off balance. The other two quick summaries are activation didn't have a significant effect within the data. About 10 to 11 activations seem to have above average win rate. If you go too low, it gets really low win rates, but there's not many games recorded. So essentially, most people are playing about 9 to 10 activations, and there's kind of give or take win rates. 9 has a little lower. Maybe that's to do with Gar being in there. 10 and 11 has a slightly above average win rate. But essentially, the takeaway for me there was play whatever win rate you want. Just have a plan for it.
Activation count.
Don't do 6. Yeah, activation count. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then the final analysis was looking at all units in the game and seeing if they had an effect, and they also had an effect on win rates. And then with that analysis, I could actually rank the units based on their positive or negative effect. So not just looking at the percentage win rate, but taking into account how many games you have recorded. Because say you have 2 games recorded and you have 2 wins, you have 100% win rate, but that's less meaningful than say a unit with 200 games recorded that has a 60% win rate. You're much more confident in that 60% win rate than the smaller one with less observations. So essentially they're ranked based on sample size and that.
Okay.
All right. There's the.
All right. Slow it down. Let's slow down. Let's go back. So here's 2 things. So I think let's start with activation win rates. I think this is something that we've been preaching for a few years, that like your minimum really activation is 10, right? That's really the sweet spot. 10 and above is where you want to be for activations. I think these numbers kind of show that, but it's not. Republic, except for Republic. And so that's cool. And then I wonder, do you think the jump if we did this in a year, does the trend show us if everything stayed the same? Okay, no changes, no more units released, everything stayed the same. Do you see that trend of Shadow Collective increasing, staying the same, or going down as people start using other,
You're talking about the win rate of Shadow Collective?
Yeah. Do you see the newness because everybody's playing it right now because it's the new hotness?
Yeah, there's two kind of thoughts with that. You could say first, it's the new hotness. So all like the good players are playing it a ton, and we just need to wait till the meta counters it. The alternative is it's the newness. The good players haven't figured out how to abuse it even more yet, so it's going to get worse over time.
Yeah.
I think in the case of Rexstar and the clone gun line, I think it got worse as time went, if I remember correctly. The win rate started out high.
It got the win rate went down.
The win rate went up, I believe, of Rexstar. Okay. I think when it first came out, it had a high win rate. And then as people made the list we now call Rexstar, I think that raised the Republic's win rate. But we don't have a lot of data there. So that's kind of speculation based on memory. So it could be either way. I personally think that Shadow Collective's strategy is a little more simple than that Rexstar, right? Token sharing was a very new idea. Stacking aims and dodges was something unprecedented. So I expect it might dip a bit as people counter, especially like Separatists. We saw Separatists had the biggest drop in win rate after Shadow Collective. And I think that's because if we look at our units here, in the bottom 5 units that have the worst impact on win rate. So these are like the worst units, in the game, supposedly, if that's how you want to interpret it, is Super Tactical Droid, number 3 bottom, DSD Spider Droid, number 4 bottom. I think those old Separatist lists that were doing really well just get completely obliterated by pikes. And so I think that the win rate might drop a little as, for example, Separatists adapt to this new meta. But I don't think it will shift a whole lot. For example, it's 63% win rate. That's quite high. Like say they trade back and you get a 3% drop in Shadow Collective and a 3% bump of Separatists. That's still going to be a statistically significant effect.
Yeah, and part of this too for me is just kind of looking at, data is one component of how you evaluate something, right? But the Spider Droid and Kalani drop, I think, is a good example of how you can and should kind of combine data with experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just 2, maybe 3 weeks ago that we were saying that, before you even did any of this data, that pikes are really good against spiders and B1s. So droid players, you're going to be sad if you bring spiders. And look, look what happened. So like the data is essentially supporting what you can already discern from observation and experience. And I think when those two things meet, that's where you really have like a meaningful conclusion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I guess here's where I think like my mind goes is, did people actually get punished for bringing spiders? Okay. Or because everyone was talking about it, did they just naturally stop bringing spiders or started playing Shadow Collective? Do you know what I mean? Do we have numbers to show us that?
So, I can give you game counts. We had 73 games with the Super Tactical Droid, 64 with the Spider Droid. And let's see, like on some of the top winning, the new Maul was in 90 games. Pikes are at 181 games. So I think they definitely were less popular overall. But I mean, there's stuff like Boba Fett on here on the winning side of it that has less games than both.
Yeah, so I think the answer probably is a little bit of both. People brought less of them, but also the ones that people brought are not doing as well. So
yeah, quite poorly. I mean, the win rate here is 39% on Kalani and 39% in the Spider Droid. That's bad. Pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know,
that's almost half of the Shadow Collective win rate.
It's interesting because I was thinking about, and we'll talk about this during Nova, because I've been waffling to the max. And I was like, well, everyone is bringing those buses now. and like doing the like bus drop off thing. So I'm like, well, maybe the ion spiders need to, maybe those need to come back to be like, nah, dog, you're not doing that. Like, and so it's just interesting. It's chicken and egg in my head based on what you guys just said, right? Like, did people get punished for bringing them, or did they just stop bringing them because they looked at pikes and went, oh yeah, they're range 4 impact, so that's going to be a problem.
What about the so you talked about Shadow Collective and Republic, and I think those also are supported by observation and experience, but what about the other 3 factions?
Yeah, between the other 3, we saw a relative parity with the Separatists underperforming the most. The difference between Separatists and Republic is the Separatist has a bunch of units that are clearly doing well. So I think as a faction, it just means like they have to shift. For example, like the T series, AAT, Cad Bane, Staps are all performing really well. So I think Separatists just need to shift what they're playing and they'll be totally fine. Empire overall is doing quite well also. They have an above average win rate. And there's some early evidence that Blizzard Force could be very, very strong. So what I was talking about earlier, this ranks them based on both number of games played and win rate. Blizzard Force has an insanely high win rate right now. I mean, looking at the units, we can see the Stormtrooper Heavy Response unit has a 70% win rate, which is pretty insane. Granted, they only have 33 games measured, so it's a smaller sample pool. But Blizzard Force is looking really good. And then Rebels are a really mixed bag. There's the dodge spam that's doing well. People are running buses and doing well. There's people running the Echo base and doing well. The one common thread I found was all the non-Echo base lists had Jedi Luke in some form. And then the Echo base list, the only common factor was they all had Rebel vets, which obviously they have to.
Right.
So Rebels seems like there's a lot of choices, and same with Empire. Like I said, Blizzard Force looks like it might be a tier above, but we don't have enough games quite to say that yet. But then all the bounty hunters are looking great. They have really high win rates. And a little thing that supports all this is the number 1 unit ranked in its positive effect is the Imperial Officer Ruthless Commander with a 64% win rate in 130 games. Essentially what that tells me is Blizzard Force is good, and you just put the Imperial Officer in there because she then gets a infinite range to long range attack. So she's basically just a much cheaper Veers, since she now has the one perk that Veers has. And then also bounty hunters and Iden and all these things are really good because all those armies you'll throw an Imperial Officer in because it's a cheap support commander.
I feel like we need a more badass nickname for the Imperial Officer than Becky. If she's going to be like number 1 on the positive effect on win.
I didn't even know that's what we were calling her.
I have never heard of that. I honestly don't understand where that came from.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know, we need to come up with a new nickname for the Imperial Officer.
I mean, I've seen that one. The Imperial Officer's name is Ruthless Commander. That's its subtext. And with the highest positive effect out of anything, it might be time to start calling the officer the Ruthless Commander.
There you go, Ruthless Commander. Maybe we just shorthand her as Ruthless Commander.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the rest, because you did it basically in the article. You have a top 15 and then a bottom 15. You also have, for anyone that wants to see every unit, they can look at the supplemental tables. We're not going to do that on the show. But of the top 15, 14 out of the 15 units on this list that had the highest positive effect on win rate were either Empire units or mercenaries. In other words, there is only one Droid Republic Rebel unit on this top 15 list, and that's the T series.
Yeah. Everything else is Empire mercs.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm a little surprised we're not seeing higher win rates overall with Empire, but I think that's because there's a lot of variation. There's a lot of units in Empire that are doing really poorly. Like the Death Troopers, Krennic are really struggling because we might talk about this in a second, but the stuff that counters Red Save Black Suns and Dodge Spam Pikes is high velocity piercing snipers. And what do Death Troopers especially hate? high velocity piercing snipers. I think Rebels also are not Rebels, Republic. We can get into why Republic's performing poorly, but I have a similar feeling because they do dodge and red saves, and snipers hurt that a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen one take that I saw after this article came out was like, well, people just need to start bringing high velocity snipers. I've got news for you. People are already doing
that. Yeah.
and that's one reason that clones are not doing great. Like those units counter the same things that counter pikes are the same things that counter Republic.
And clones don't have a single high velocity unit, so
right.
There's that.
So the fact that despite that fact that pikes are number 3 on this list, I don't know. I'll let people draw their own conclusions there, but I think you can safely say that like people are already bringing high velocity. Yeah, people might bring more high velocity, I guess, but like, what's Republic supposed to do?
Yeah.
What are droids supposed to do besides bring AATs? I don't want to be forced to run an AAT list if I'm running droids. I don't know.
It seems that the lists are doing well. All have an AAT in there for the pike matchup. You can do different flavors, whether it's Staps or Cad Bane or however you want to outfit it. But it seems that and here's the other thing, Rebel dodge spam is also still great because Shadow Collective can't take high velocity snipers. Rebels can. So while they can only take 2 to 3 pikes, or they can take, no pikes, and the Rebels are a little weaker than the pikes, but you get those 3 snipers. So you're not just seeing dodge spam and Shadow Collective, you're also seeing a ton of Rebel players play dodge spam. I mean, you can see it in Gen Con, right? 2 out of the 3 top 3, or 2 out of the 3 top 8 lists at Gen Con that were Rebels were dodge spam lists.
Yep.
And then if you take into account all factions, it's something like at least half was dodge spam, maybe 5 out of the top 8 were. It's everywhere.
It is. You got to plan for it. I mean, that's our short-term takeaway, right? The best short-term takeaways we can, if we set like balanced discussions aside, that's the best thing we can do right now is like, how do you prep for a tournament with this information, right? And I think right now the answer is you bring as much high velocity as possible.
Yeah, I think this will lead into some of our tournament discussions and what we brought. You'll see my list was very much so informed on this.
Just to round out some of these other top 15 units. Number 1 was the officer. We can just do top 5 here. 2 was Maul. That would be Shadow Collective Maul, not Separatist Maul.
Yeah, I know what the bottom unit in all of this was. Separatist Maul was dead bottom, 35% win rate, largest negative effect.
Brutal. A big feature of droid lists. Number 3 was Pikes. Number 4 was the AA5, which is of course both I guess you could say this is a Rebel unit too, but it's both a Rebel and a Shadow Collective unit. Number 5 was the Capo, and then 6 was Black Sun. And then 7 was Storm's heavy response unit. So then you keep going down here. It's a smattering of Empire and mercenary units. Vader's on here, Cad Bane's on here, Snows are on here, which speaks a lot to Blizzard Force specifically. That Snows aren't on this list at all. Bosk, T-Series, Boba Fett, speeder bikes, the Empire speeder bikes, and then the second version of Vader. So both versions of Vader in the top 15.
Good old operative Vader.
Yeah. I mean, none of this is terribly surprising. It's kind of sad if you're a Republic player or a droid player or potentially even a Rebel player. What another interesting finding from this, were there any Republic units that had a positive effect on win rate?
In the analysis, every Republic unit outside of Pikes had a negative effect on win rate, which is pretty rough. It's something I touched on. Separatists, I think, like I said, if you're a Separatist player, it feels bad because you have limited options and what you can play, a lot less than before. For Republic, it's like, I don't know, your idea is as good as mine. There's nothing in the numbers that's like your shining light at the end of the tunnel. My thought was bring something with Yoda and Barks and R2 because you can bid, and Secret Mission and Yoda are still good at objectives and Barks. So if you can't outshoot them, bid hard for objectives and play the objective hard, because you still got red saves. And this is something I played against. I played at my first German event last week. I played against Johannes, the European champion. I feel like he's kind of the parallel is like the Luke Cook of Europe, because they had one European championship way back in the day and there's never been another one. So he's the eternal European champion.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I played against him and he was playing an R2D2 Barks army with heavies on it. And they were surprisingly hard to kill with the R2D2 repair. And then he had a super bid, so you're playing like breakthrough or bombing run, and then it's also all objective or deployments that R2D2 can easily score a secret mission on. He ended up going undefeated at that event. He beat me, and so I thought that was kind of an interesting way to go. So that the list I made might have been partially inspired by my personal experience, since the data wasn't really giving me a clear way out for Republic.
And I think something that I really haven't seen people do that I think actually could be pretty good legitimately is Anakin Padme with pikes. Like the traditional Anakin Padme clone gunline list, but you swap in some of those clone heavies for pikes. I think that could be pretty legit also. So I don't think it's like all bleakness for Republic. But it's definitely clear to me that, you know, don't get me wrong, 40, what'd you say, 46%? Is that their 43%?
Their win rate right now? I believe it's 43%. It dropped. I think 46 was before. They currently have a 43% win rate. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's clearly that's less than 50, but it's also like not that far off. So Republic could still win events. You know, this isn't like 40K where you have like the worst factions have like 15 to 20% win rates and the best ones have like 80%, right? This is still, you know, everything's other than Shadow Collector still like relatively close to 50%. So I don't want to get too down on Republic. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at my clones right now and I'm still not going to lie. There's like 40% of me that's considering bringing them to Nova Open. Just to
the
try
contrarian in you.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll see. The caveat section, I talk about how players skill, because, you know, I wanted to discuss some of the potential things that could come from this. The examples I gave may or may not have been inspired by a bunch of Fifth Trooper people. I called it the contrarian effect, when good players try and play something that's believed to be bad to try and prove everyone wrong. That may not be inspired by half the Fifth Trooper team.
Yeah, we do tend to try and do that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think because it comes down to, you know, for me and I think everybody else, maybe Evan is a little bit more aggressive about it, but like I think the rest of us are like, okay, we've been pontificating about how bad this is. We've played against it and we know it's bad, but everybody, like, you know, a lot of the folks out in the world still tell us that we're wrong, or that maybe it's because we haven't played them or we don't know what we're doing. And so for me, it's like, all right, I'll play it. Maybe I'm wrong, you know? And then it turns out, you know, I think then that kind of leads to like what we're talking about here. Like, you know, I think as players who play and think about, I mean, I think about this game more than almost anything else in my life, right? Because of everything that we do. And so, you know, I think this data started to prove out things that we inherently knew as players, right? And you go, like, none of your points surprised me at all after facing Pikes and Blizzard Force and everything else. I go, yeah, no, that lines up with the ass spanking I just took over the weekend. So yeah, no, that sounds about right. And so it's just it's funny, right? Because it's good to have data to back up some of the stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah.
You know?
I think the thing that was most surprising to me about it was the fact that everything in Shadow Collective was performing so well. Right, I heard a lot of people complaining about Pikes. That's the main thing here, but like Black Sun is doing really well. The AA5 was. I think the worst units in the roster, according to the data, is like Gar Saxon Super Commandos. but we're still doing really well. Like there was a 4 super commando army that went top 4 at the world qualifier in Hanover. So it's like their worst unit is as good as like the mid tier to upper tier in a lot of the other factions. So I just thought it was surprising to me that everything in the faction is performing so well. There's no real duds.
Yeah.
The worst Shadow Collective unit is better than the best Republic unit.
Yeah.
In terms of
yeah. I mean, but okay, all right. As rough as I think pikes are, as good as they are, I still don't believe they're game breaking.
Well,
I think there's answers to it. Yeah. And that means it's not game breaking.
Well, and some people were talking about this today on the Discord. I think I think a positive thing that separates Shadow Collective from a list like, you go back in Legion's history and try and find the most unpleasant / overpowered list, and the one that most comes to mind readily is Rexstar standby sharing, right? What's nice about Shadow Collective is that like Rexstar standby sharing was very uninteractive, right? If you were playing against a standby sharing Rexstar list, it just felt like you couldn't do anything. Shadow Collective still interacts with you in ways that are like perfectly normal, right? Like they make attacks, they defend, they spend tokens, like everything about Shadow, like pikes and Black Sun don't really function any differently than any other core unit in the game. Like there's nothing about them that like breaks the rules. They just do all those normal things more, if that makes sense, right? Like their attacks are a little bit more efficient. I think they generate more tokens, but it's not like standby sharing Rexstar where you're crowding out the thought tree, right? The decision tree for your opponent.
This could be changed with a points adjustment, not a rework, right? Like it's nothing about its grain. They're just maybe a little too efficient. So if you bumped points up, they play well. I think they're just, at least based on this and people's experiences, it seems they might be a little too good at what they do. But that's always an easy fix, right? You adjust the points a little down the line. If this trend persists, it's not a hard thing to change. Yeah. And I think the other point, though, that I was thinking about with the point people bring up about lists countering the pikes and Black Sun, I guess some people would say, oh, it's going to become balanced because we can just counter it. And I guess my thought is a healthy meta where all their factions are warped, that they have to be countering one thing. And Magic, a big example was Jace the Mind Sculptor. This is getting off a little tangent, but those of you who are Magic players, during that time, you were playing Jace the Mind Sculptor, or you're playing an army specifically made to beat Jace the Mind Sculptor,
like a red black aggro deck or something.
And so while yes, you could say there are multiple things you could play, it was all Jace the Mind Sculptor or all. What's the thing in your faction that's good against James the Mind Sculptor or Jace the Mind Sculptor? And so just because we can counter pikes, I don't know if we want to warp the entire game around beating pikes and Black Sun and Shadow Collective. I would hope that it, maybe we're wrong. It's early adopter effects or something else. But if this trend persists, I wouldn't be super stoked if like all my lists had to start with 3 snipers or an AAT from here on out.
Yeah. Here's my argument to that. I don't think you need to really tech deck to build out a counter to pikes. A counter to pikes is something that's always been good in this game, which is snipers, which is Civil War era snipers. Nothing has changed. They've always been good. They're always a good unit to have. And so it doesn't feel like countering. It just feels like, it just reaffirms how good those were.
Right.
You're like, the game's only this way.
But I mean, you said it in the name, right? There's only 2 factions that can bring Civil War.
Yeah.
And
okay, but with CIS, the tank, the AAT, that's always been good. That's been good from the beginning, and just building around it, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think there's other ways around pikes too. Like, I think, they are scary. There is a lot of dodges. I get it, but there is definitely, you can still beat them with regular lists if you position correctly and stuff. It's just that they are good. I don't think they're unbeatable.
No, definitely not. But, to your point about sort of warping list building decisions, Lucas, just while we're talking specifically about the special forces slot, the only special forces unit, and there are a lot of special forces units in this game, the only special forces unit that has a above 50% win rate on your table here that is not a Civil War strike team is Mandalorian Super Commandos. All of the other special forces units have a below 50% win rate. I take that back.
Pathfinders are up there.
Imperial Royal Guard is at exactly 50. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Pathfinders are above 50.
I was gonna say Pathfinders performed really well, which is something surprising to me. So that's why
it's only 23 games for the Pathfinders, though.
Is that just maybe that's just all Ryan Salaki? Yeah, I was gonna say it's all Stabcats Ryan.
Yeah, that's just Stabcats Ryan's record, basically, right there.
Stabcats Ryan single-handedly propping up Pathfinders.
Yep. But yeah, like Wookiees, Magna Guard, below 50% win rate. Some of them, Imperial Special Forces, Inferno Squad, all below 50%. Some of them didn't even get enough observations on here. But yeah, I think that's
you might notice your favorite unit isn't on there, and that's because I required each unit in this analysis had to have at least 20 games played. And that's just because if you have, like, for example, Lando has like a 90% win rate, but he has, I think, 10 games recorded. 12. So that's just it's like 3 good players playing Lando creates that. So you don't want to read into those patterns too much. You want to require that there's, a decent baseline.
Yep. All right. Should we parlay this into tournament predictions?
Yeah, I think mine will be quite different than you. Turns out Europeans play quite differently than over in good old America.
Yeah, let's talk about M. Norden first.
Yeah, so M. Norden is in the north of Germany. It's in Bremen. It's massive event. And I guess I could start off with what I brought. We had to lock lists Friday, and I decided to go with an Iden Boba triple speeder bikes army. And this is kind of, Kyle and I were talking a lot in the Discord about Iden Boba. We liked it because Iden can bring a high velocity sniper. Inferno Squadron as a high velocity sniper, and you can tack strike with your snipers. I was playing a lot of Iden 333 pre Shadow Collective, so I'm very comfortable with her. She's a strong unit, and I think she is strong against all the top things right now. And Boba, Mr. Shalansky over here was saying he thought Boba was hot garbage after the points changes, so that brought out the contrarian in us that we had to show that Boba was good. And then looking at all these different things.
Whoa. I never said hot garbage. I just said he wasn't as good as you guys keep making him out to be. That's what I said.
I remember hot garbage, but no.
That's how I remember it too.
Yeah. You know what? I'll lean into it. Yeah, he's not that good. He's hot garbage. Fine with me.
And then 3 bikes, because the Iden bikes list was really good pre-points change. And sometimes with bikes, you can just do really broken things like bombing run and breakthrough. And then Inferno Squadron also repairs bikes. So it's a good combo. And you get surprisingly good order control with this army. So on Tac Strike, you order Iden, your ISF, your sniper. Inferno Squadron coordinates to your shore trooper and your mortar. So all that's in your bag is 1 stormtrooper, Boba, and your bikes. And so it kind of lended to itself. Boba's also a fast unit, so he can join in on that alpha strike. And if you noticed on turn, whenever you're doing your tactical strike, you have good order control of Boba without an order. So it's a good time to proc that independent, get some aims going. And so Oliver, it seemed like it was a good combo to me. And because of this analysis showing that Pikes and Black Sun seem to be quite good, it made me lean into all that high velocity. So my hope with this, I had a very deep bid, was to get some free wins with Bombing Run and Breakthrough. But now talking to people, not everyone's lists are up in public. Looks like about 50% of the field at M Norden is going to be some sort of speeders or bikes. So it turns out the European meta is quite different in here. If you know, at North American events, if you take bikes in a bid, you're like run up against gun lines all day and you're in a great position. So it looks like Bombing Run and Breakthrough is going to be kind of a wash for almost all of my games. So what's going to win? I have no idea, because I'm, I guess, used to the very group thinky North American meta. And so I played a German event last week and I brought this list, didn't play against a single Pike or any of that stuff. I played against, like I said, Johannes's Anakin R2D2 triple bark list. And I was like, I don't even know what barks do with their heavy weapons. So I teched for it and I'm hoping to do well. I really like the army regardless. But as far as predictions, I have no idea. I do think Blizzard Force will do well because the people here really like bikes and Blizzard Force seems quite strong. Yeah. I could see some Blizzard Force going in the top. Obviously some kind of Shadow Collective, but now that there's all these speeders around, I'm not sure if Pikes can survive 50% speeders, because there is that, one in every so many games where a Pike list can be locked onto Breakthrough or Bombing Run. And while Pikes are good, your options there are not as good as other places. I don't know if you can make through half of the field all trying to force that on you. So we'll see. I'm excited. It's the meta here is all over the place and the tables are amazing. Yeah, shout out to Finn, by the way. This data article, he ran the Hanover World Qualifier. They had over 70 players. And I checked this with Dr. Power Slam 2, the guy who runs Legion stats, and not a single list had an import error. Everything was in a perfect format that with one click he could put it all in. TOs take notes. I'm looking at you, Gen Con. Me and Tio had to spend literally 3 days manually inputting all this stuff. Lots of coffees. So, but the way Finn does it is you lose your first round if you don't have your list in perfect format a week ahead of time. And I think that gets people's attention. So I don't think he's had to give anyone a loss. Maybe that just speaks to the Germans are way more on top of it, but I nearly missed my window. I remembered there being harsh rules about lists. And on Friday, I checked that morning. So I was like, I think I remember it being like pretty early and it was due that night. So, but yeah, it seems to work. All their lists get in on time and no one's dropping games due to lists. So, TOs just threaten your players with losses and they will get all their data in perfect format.
Yeah, I bet that would do the trick here in the US too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe on the first event, you might have some people drop games, but like, I guarantee you after that first event, no one's turning lists late.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that should be exciting to hear the recap from. I have definitely noticed there's 2 locations that have very different metas than the US. And not surprisingly, those are also the 2 places that have a large Legion community besides the US. But that is primarily Germany and then just more broadly Europe and Australia. I feel like those 2 metas are wildly different than whatever situation we have going on here in the US. So it'll be really interesting to see the results from those.
So here's my my theory on what's going on. That I think that US has had the oldest, longest community. It might not be the biggest anymore. I think Germany's technically might be bigger than us now, but the US has the oldest community. And if you remember, for the beginning of the game, for like the first year, maybe 2 years, the best thing was always a gun line. I mean, I guess there was Veer's bikes before you could really make a gun line right at the beginning.
I mean, that's the units that were out, like.
Yeah. So But I think that kind of carried on into people's minds that like the best way to play is a gun line, or maybe just the players here have all got, at least myself, it took me a while to stop playing gun lines because I've been playing it for so long and I was really confident with it. And so I think maybe since the communities there are newer, they don't have that history of, playing gun lines for a year and a half so that it's your crutch. So there's my little conspiracy theory on why gun lines are so popular here.
That's fair.
That's very fair.
Yeah. So I forced myself to start playing Iden 333 because I was like, you know what? This is the most like not gun liney thing ever. It's an all-in alpha strike, and this will help me get over my gun line crutch.
Did it work?
Yeah, I think I'm maybe more well-rounded. Who knows?
Well,
we'll see it in the morning if it
I've
worked.
never been good at gun lines, so I've never had that problem.
I can safely say that I've always had that problem. Yeah. Although I have played like speeder / aggro lists with success, but yeah, definitely my default go-to is like, I want a bunch of core units with heavies and some special forces and a force user.
Yep. I was like, I want 2 bounty hunters or 1 bounty hunter, a bunch of core units, and some snipers.
Yep. Speaking of bounty hunters, should we do Nova?
Yeah.
Real quick, Jay.
So we're both going to Nova. If you guys haven't heard, there are 4 5th Trooper staff members in the Heat 1. It's myself, Kyle, John, and Evan. So the likelihood of us having a in-house battle royale is likely, very likely.
Yeah.
And so I'm really not looking forward to that aspect. I am looking forward to going. I'm really excited. A lot of people I haven't seen in a while are going to be there, so that's going to be good. And some people I have seen, of course, which will be great. And it's relatively closer to my house than most places, so that's good. And so predictions. Okay, you want to go first? What do you think? Go ahead, Kyle. What do you got?
All right. I'm gonna say 3 Shadow Collective.
Okay.
3 Empire, 1 Rebel, 1 Droid.
This is your
as far
8.
As top 8. Yeah. That's my top 8 faction breakdown prediction.
All right. I'm gonna say 2 Shadow Collective. I think 3 Empire, 3 Rebels. No, nobody else. I don't think CIS and Republic make it to the top 8.
I feel like I can guess more on this because I know how you North Americans think more than Europeans. I think there's going to be 2 Empire players. I think 2 Rebels, a Separatist, and 3 Shadow Collective.
So all of us are saying no Republic list top 8.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know how all you North Americans think.
Yep.
Yep. Man, now
I wouldn't be surprised if Johannes brings it, but I don't know anyone in North America who's been talking about playing Republic.
Kyle, maybe. You waffling? Is this discussion making you waffle? So here's the problem.
I had already been waffling.
What's Nova's due like the morning of, right? So that's a big problem for us wafflers.
Wait, lists aren't in already?
No.
No.
You guys can still waffle. Dig it. People are just gonna play Republic because I said that.
No, I mean,
made strong claims.
And what makes it worse for me is the units that are left in my painting backlog, which is right here. This is 2 units of pikes.
Yeah.
They fit identically into both lists that I want to run for either Empire or Republic. So it's not like it's not like I even need to choose for painting purposes. Like I'm painting these 2 units of pikes, and they're going to go in either my Empire army or my Republic army.
Yeah.
I decided finally, by the way, on the tracksuit mafia pikes. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's basically like black. The cloth is black, the armor is red, and then I did a tracksuit stripe, a white tracksuit stripe down the side, just like the tracksuit mafia from that Hawkeye show. So I figured, their mobsters seemed appropriate.
It's funny. I briefly talked about this last episode, and then on After Dark, John and I kind of built out 2 lists. Tim, after our last Scoundrels episode, we stayed on the horn for like 45 minutes afterwards, building lists, like trying to figure out. I had 3 lists going into today that I was like, I'm going to play one of these for sure. Literally, as of right now, I've just added 3 more to my list. None of them are the same. None of them are even close the same. And I've painted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units in the last week and a half in anticipation of playing them. And I don't know that I'll play any of the ones that I've painted. But so it got me through my painting log, some of it. But yeah, dude, I have no idea what to do. I'm lost. I am like way in the weeds.
Wasn't it just yesterday you posted a list and you're like, all right, this is what I'm playing for Nova?
Yeah, I'm not playing that one anymore. Yeah.
I feel like I've seen you say that so many times. I think you sent me a list, and that day I put out the date paper, and then you're like, actually, I'm playing this because your paper. And then later on, you're like, nah, I'm actually screw the numbers. I'm playing this.
Yeah. I'm struggling, boys. I'm struggling real hard. I think it's because all of the lists that I've showed you guys, none of them feel right to me. It's not about a meta thing or like going up against pikes. I just look at the list and I just have no idea how I'm going to play it, and that's bad, right? And so I'm just going, this just doesn't feel right in my gut, and so I think that's why today this morning I woke up in a panic and completely like scrapped all of that and started over with 3 other lists now. So I don't know what I'm gonna bring.
Do you have a faction you're even favoring now? I know you were going between Rebels and Separatists for a bit.
Yeah, I think I've dropped Separatists and I'm going between Rebels and Empire now. So I have 2 lists for Rebels and I have 1 list for Empire.
And what's the Empire? Is this a double heavy Empire? You're coming crawling back to the best faction in the game?
Yeah, I think I'm going double heavy Empire.
Blizzard Force double heavy Empire?
No.
Oh, okay.
You're not going to take that infinite range free kill 2 strike teams card?
No. Because I think
you don't want those heavy storm. You're already doing double heavy. Don't tell me you're doing the tank and double heavy.
No.
Yeah, so why don't you want those super duper stormtroopers?
Well, because there's some problems with that list of things I like. No snipers in Blizzard Force, which I think you need as a support for a double heavy list. You need, and whether they're snipers, I think they're snipers now because of where everything's at, but you guys know in that double heavy I was playing saboteurs, right? And I just don't think sabs are good in today's world. And I think you need triple snipers with the double heavy in order for it to function properly. I mean,
still taking dewbacks in that one?
Yeah. You know what? Screw it. I don't care. I'll tell everybody. Whatever. Come at me, bro. Like, if you're gonna tech to come after me specifically, then you're probably not going to do great in the tournament overall.
Tech for double heavy.
Yeah, so I am between my standard the list that I really like, which is the double dewback, double ATST, 3 storms, all with astromechs and 3 snipers. So it's either that or taking out the 2 dewbacks and putting in 2 sets of pikes, and then the rest all stays the same. I think I have to pull out one of the astromechs to make that work. Yeah, either that or I'm looking at a double airspeeder list for Rebels. So I think I'm gonna go double heavy one way or the other. and it's just which faction. Because at the end of the day, that's the most comfortable to me, and I feel like I know it the best. I feel like it just feels right when I play it, you know.
And ion spiders are less of a fear.
Yep.
Yeah.
If people are playing iron spiders, they might do well against you, but I don't know how well they're gonna do overall.
Right, and that's fine because I have 3 astromechs. So I'm just boop, no, boop, no, pull those ions off. Sorry, pal. You know,
I don't think we'll see too many ion spiders.
I don't think so either. You may see one set, but I've been really thinking about them because everybody's bringing those buses. Buses are back. I think we're gonna see a lot of buses at Nova. A lot.
Gen Con was an indication.
Yeah, and so I that's what really threw me, to be really honest with you guys, because all those other lists, they were good against like everything but armor, and I was like, ugh, like, you know. And so I need go ahead.
I was just saying, I think the buses are similarly coming out of the woodwork now. Ion spiders are gone. It's kind of interesting how units who have like always been good but were countered by the hot stuff like magically appear again. What's the thing that counters them is countered by another hot thing. The counter brought back vehicles,
you know. And then I don't know, I like Empire because I like the red saves, and then but the rebels, you can get like 12 activations in a double heavy list.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Yeah, which is
you can do disgusting. A double bounty, triple bikes list and get 12 activations too.
You know what, the bounty, it's just so much trouble for me. Like, listen, you guys are really smart, and everybody on our staff is really smart and good at this game, and I am just like a stupid Neanderthal, and so I just need big things that don't die. I just go and just push them at them. That's my only thing I have going for me. So that's where I'm at.
Hey, this might be one of the few times I say something nice to you publicly. You're doing well with Luke Sabine. I don't think that's a Neanderthal list. That's a pretty technical list.
That's a very technical list.
Yeah, it's time has come. It's over for Luke Sabine right now in the current where things are currently, unfortunately, you know. And all the anti-tech that's coming out for Pikes is anti-Luke and Sabine too, so it's just
and just dodge spam explosions is a lot less cool when everything on the table is sitting with 2 dodges.
Right. It just doesn't really work.
I mean, you can use it to clear all the dodges.
Right. So that's where I'm at. I'm double heavy in something, I'll tell you that right now. So I really like the airspeeder though. Like, I think, anyways, that's where we're at.
Could flank some Pikes with that.
Good. You could definitely take out buses before they make it to you with airspeeder.
Airspeeders demolish.
Yeah, but like, I'm sorry, what? You got buses?
And that's nice. Those Black Sun with their range one grenades? Isn't there an immunity in that ship as well?
Yeah.
Have fun with your impact grenades. Oh, whoops. Just kidding. No impacts for you.
Can't get high enough. Yeah.
But I'm sure I'll change my mind 30 times before I leave Thursday. So.
Yeah, my two.
Well, I saw.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're all right. I think I lagged out for a second.
Okay. Yeah, my two are the ones I've already talked about. One is Iden Boba, and the other one is Anakin Padme Pikes. So, which I actually think, as much as we've talked badly about Gar on this episode, there is one thing that Anakin Padme Pikes is really good against, and that is like aggressive builds. And one thing that we saw that was really popular at Gen Con was aggressive builds, either with like Black Sun and buses and or Maul in some combination. You know, there was a lot of like taking Darksaber Maul and as blue, just infiltrating him into your opponent's deployment zone, which usually is like a terrible idea, but since Darksaber Maul has both cunning and he can take a standby with Judio Mastery, which he starts the game activated. It really changes that calculus because you can just do the double move, engage something standby in a way that like other force users can't. So
that was my concern with not having a force user, but my thought was if a Maul does that, at least I can whipcord him and the suppression will knock off the standby. But yeah, when I saw that for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the grossest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. If you don't have a force user or whipcord, it's like, what do I do here?
If you can't put suppression into melee or force push something, like you could just, and Maul's in all those lists, right? He's in the bus list, he's in the pike list, all those Shao collective armies are running Maul.
Yep.
Yeah, so take Boba or some kind of force push if you don't want Maul just to start the game in the middle of your army.
Yeah, I mean, but how deep can they bid?
They can bid. I've seen some of these lists where it's like 10, 11, 12 points bid. Shadow Collective can actually bid pretty deep. So
yeah, so that was the thing I was looking at with that double heavy. Like I can go a 16-point bid.
Oh yeah, I mean they're not doing that.
I don't know. Good luck.
Yeah.
What's your bid? 16 points. I'll be blue.
Yeah. People aren't bidding 16 for the most part. Yeah, should be good.
I'm so excited. I think it's going to be a great event. I think I'm stressing myself out way too much with what lists I'm bringing. So I think I'm just going to decide today. Just by the end of the day, I'm going to pick my list and just go with it. So, and I think you guys know which one it'll be. Yeah, I'm leaning hard into that double ATST list for sure. So
I don't think I'm going to know what I'm going to play until Wednesday night, Thursday time frame. I would say listeners tell me what I should play, but I know everyone's going to say Republic.
Yeah.
And I'd like to.
Everyone say Empire? I thought you did on Facebook, and you got. Was it overwhelming Republic or is it Empire?
No, it was. I did a Facebook poll with the same question. It was overwhelmingly Republic.
The contrarian effect, it's real.
Well, people want to see it do well, but like, also, I want to do well, or at least try to. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
How many times have you tried an Anakin Gar out in recent history?
Just
once.
Adepticon.
Just
Adepticon, and I regretted it. I don't mind saying that. I did get least bad Gar player at that tournament, but I still regretted it.
Yeah,
I'm not going for least bad faction player. So anyway.
All right.
All right. Well, good luck to everyone at Nova Open. I hope to see folks there. Come and say hi. Maybe not in the middle of game, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing people and hanging out.
Yeah, same.
Good luck at M Norden, Lucas.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be probably the only person there with the 5th Trooper shirt on, so you can say hi again. Not during a game because I got to make a good showing at my first big German event, but it's been really nice. I didn't talk about this too much when I mentioned the event last weekend, but everyone here has been super friendly, really easygoing. Like people are offering to drive me all over the place for events.
Awesome.
I might say it's at the end of the cast, so not so many people will hear it. I think the Germans are kind of doing Legion better than here in America. Their tables are amazing. They serve us beer and pizza as you're playing. That's just like part of the event. The whole time when I signed up for this, they're like, this is just a small local thing. So like, don't expect too much. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Yeah, I don't have expectations. They kept on telling me this. And then I showed up. And like I said, about 20 people, great looking tables, beer and pizza over on the side. I was like, man, if this is like something that you need to preface that this isn't good, I can't wait for Norden.
Didn't do
anything halfway.
Yeah, when you said that, it reminded me. So years ago, I had a buddy come live here for a while from Berlin, and we went to we went and saw Revenge of the Sith, and he was like, "Yeah, so where's the beer?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, like, can I get a beer to go into the movie?" I'm like, "No, man, we don't do that here." Like, he was just like, he was so disappointed. He's like, "What?" I know you had to be there, but it was just so funny. Like, no, they don't do beer in the movie theater. Like, now they do. Now
they do now.
Yeah. But back then,
I was gonna say
Back then, they didn't have the food and drink theaters as prevalent as they are now.
Yep.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
All right, Nova. We got it, Kyle.
We got it. We're gonna avoid each other on day one.
Yeah.
No team kills.
Yeah. I'm really worried about team kills over here.
All right. Well, we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jay.
I'm Lucas.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.